Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Angels of Death, episode 10. When we last left off, Rachel had finished her descent back to Zack's floor, found his knife, found how awful his room was, headed back up to Gray's floor. Meanwhile, Zack and Danny were having a conversation as Danny revealed that he has medicine that will save Zack, but he will only give it to Zack in exchange for Rachel's eyes. Zack refuses, and so Zack does eventually tell Rachel that Danny has the medicine. He does not mention the part about the eyes. And so after several more encounters with large snakes, or one encounter with a large snake, I should say, Rachel goes off armed only with the knife to go and get the medicine to save Zack. And that's where we start this week. So, as I mentioned, last week, it was kind of vague what exactly Rachel was going for. I presume she was going to get the medicine from Danny, but she could have very well been going after Gray. They didn't exactly say, but here we find out she's absolutely going after Danny. That's her goal. She wants the medicine from Danny, even if she then runs into Gray initially. But before that, what should show up but everyone's favorite hallucinatory pink gas? And it takes us through a bunch of, psychedelic images like the gases want to do. Only one I really want to talk about, though. There's a part where Rachel, holding the knife, stabs a mirror image of Kathy. And that image then turns into Zack, and it's kind of like a representation of the moment where he stabs himself with the scythe. And I feel like that I really love that little plot beat, just because I feel like it kind of encapsulates that she's really feeling guilty. She feels like she's responsible for everything that's happened to Zack so far. So I think that's just a really nice little bit there. But anyway, she eventually makes it through the pink gas, only to find out that Gray has the medicine. Which is not good, not good, because Gray, as of course, hates her at this point, and that's just not really good for her chance of getting the medicine, but that's one hell of a fight. But then, as Gray starts to, list out her sins and begin the witch trial, he mentions that he brought Zack to the building. And presumably he brought Kathy and Eddie and Danny to the building too, But he also says that he did not bring Rachel to the building, which leads to a new mystery. Who brought Rachel to the building then? Because it seems that, first off, who's on B1? Because Gray is very much acting like the leader of this whole organization, but this is still only the second basement. There should be a floor above this. I'm not entirely sure who is going to be there, given that, there is no one else on the poster for the show. But yeah, there's seemingly someone who brought Rachel that is not Gray, or maybe even connected to any of the four masters that we've met. But then starts the witch trial, as Gray starts to describe all of the four masters as angels. And so, in my very first Angels of Death video, when I titled it, The Adventures of Scythe Boy and Angel Girl, that was kind of my assumption that the Angel of Death was going to be Rachel. That something about her was, an angel of death, I guess. I don't know. That was kind of my assumption. But nope, the Angels of Death are, in fact, the Floor Masters. This episode pretty much all but confirms. Given Gray's use of angelic terms to refer to them, that's kind of what you kind of have to assume. But then, the trial starts, a new gust of pink gas, and the pink smoke really shows that nothing that happens in this court is really indicative of Rachel really at all. It's all just a part of Gray's mind games at this point. Also, something that I kind of noticed in this episode, before this, I'd assumed that the gas just kind of showed hallucinations, personalized hallucinations, but after this, it definitely seems like the gas leaves the victim to be, shown whatever Gray wants them to see. That it's not just random. Given by the fact that both Rachel and Gray are being able to interact with this courtroom and with Kathy and Eddie, who are very much dead, But who's not dead? Danny. So I think definitely so I think all three of them, Rachel, Gray, and Danny, are all kind of interacting with this hallucination of the courtroom and with Eddie and Kathy. Um, that's kind of my thoughts on all that. Um, and so first off, so essentially, Gray gives either the actual Floor Master or the two ghosts of the dead Floor Masters the chance to talk about their but chance to testify against Rachel in the biggest kangaroo court I've ever seen. Um, given that two of the witnesses are ghosts created by the prosecutor judge, uh, specifically to convict the defendant. Maybe as a child of lawyers, I'm just really like caught up in like that's not how the law works. But you know what? That's where we are. Um, and so Kathy goes on this whole rant about how somehow all of her being happy at she's happy about Rachel's sin. I think I'm not entirely sure, and that's somehow Rachel's fault. Yeah, I don't really care about that part. The important part is Danny does kind of stick up for Rachel in that bit. I forget exactly how, but I just definitely remember him like standing up against Kathy in defense of Rachel, which is kind of weird, I guess. Given that like maybe if Rachel had gone after her eyes, that might make sense. But like he doesn't really care about her as a person. Um, but anyway, after that, it's Eddie's turn to testify, and most of what he says is pretty ridiculous. The biggest thing, he brings up as a way that he and Rachel are the same, is that Rachel buried the bird in the very first episode, and because they both bury dead people or dead animals, they are somehow the same. What? That's ridiculous. No, that's not how this works. Not how any of this works. Not how a single part of this works. Nah. Though as ridiculous as really all of Eddie's rant is, he does say like the reason that Rachel and I couldn't find happiness is that Rachel does not know what happiness is. And while I don't think that's the reason they couldn't find happiness. The reason is that Eddie's a raging psychopath. I do think there is some kind of validity to the claim that Rachel just doesn't know what happiness is. Her idea of happiness is getting murdered by Zack, which is hardly a happy thing. So like, maybe there's a kernel of truth in the midst of all the bullshit. But anyway, Eddie tries to condemn her to murder by spikes, and Gray's like, nope, you can't do that again. And then finally Danny's turn. And Danny, when Rachel shows up, just like ignores everything in the courthouse and like, hey, can I have medicine now? Which like, props to her for her dedication to Zack. Once again, Rachel and Zack's relationship is really the best part of the show, and this episode definitely suffered from not having them bounce off each other. But you know what? That little bit where like Rachel's just like, nope, I need the medicine. Fuck all this trial bullshit. Give me the medicine. That was really great. Then Danny's insanity. He was on this whole rant about how she's like super pure, and despite all that, she's still soulless, and she's a monster, and she needs to be burned. Yada yada yada. And his insanity is just so intense that it seems like he takes control of the pink gas. First off, his whole speech is all, normally drawn, and, people look like people. And then all of a sudden, as he starts ranting, there's all these, like, visual effects that go on. I'm not sure if those, given that, we're in this very hallucinatory state with the gas, I'm not sure if those are supposed to be literal or not. I'm not sure. Someone who's played the game, feel free to tell me if Danny actually has the power to control the gas. I don't get it. I don't know. Anyway, after that, Danny leaves, and Gray decides that those witnesses are enough. That's all he needs. These highly unreliable witnesses are somehow enough to convict Rachel of the crime of being a witch and tempting all of these pure murder angels to a life of darkness. And then he sticks her to the cross, sets the room on fire, and that's where we end. And I swear to God, if Zack don't somehow, despite the fact that he's like bleeding to death, burst into the room and save Rachel, I'm gonna be pissed. I don't know. I don't see really any other way to get out of it unless Danny changes sides. I don't know. That's really all the only living people we met are like Danny, Gray, Rachel, and Zack. So I guess Danny saving them is kind of the only way to given Zack's condition. That's really all that's left. Maybe I don't know. He'll agree to go with them if after Zack kills Rachel, he gets Rachel's eyes. I don't know. But not that the next episode title though leaves me so hyped. It's what's it called? Cause you're my god, Zack, or cause Zack is my god, or something. Like, we all know God is Rachel's motivation, and if Zack becomes her motivation, beyond all the like pretty words about God and all that, oh, I'll be so hyped. Y'all know I love that Rachel Zack dynamic. It's the best part of the show, and I'm super pumped for next week. That's really all I have to say for this week's episode. I really enjoyed it. It was not the best, given the lack of Zack. But it's still a lot of fun. So I hope you all enjoyed the episode too, and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like, subscribe, or whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. Also, don't forget, I have a straw poll in the description down here for next season's Fall 2018 anime reviews. Feel free to fill that out. Vote for whatever you want me to cover. And once Angels of Death is gone in a couple months. Because Angels of Death is actually continuing a little bit into the fall quarter, actually, but whatever. Anyway, that's really all I have to say. So, as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!